Well, hey everyone, this is Chris DeFurio, and welcome to another episode of Keys to the Shop, where we give you insights, inspiration, and the tools you need to grow as a coffee service professional. And I'm really excited to have you along today for this episode number 473. We're going to be talking about wholesale and wholesale representation, how to be a great wholesale rep with Forte, who has been the wholesale rep and director at Olympia Coffee in Washington for 13 years now. So really quickly, before we get into this episode, I just wanted to let you know that subscribing to the show is really important, not just for the show, but for you, because we come out with a lot of great content every month, and I don't want you to miss it. I think we have so many episodes that come out. All of them are very much designed to help you run an amazing coffee shop, to help you grow as a leader in your cafe and help you grow other people as well. And so just hit subscribe wherever you're listening to the podcast right now, as well as getting on YouTube, where you might be watching this, and subscribe to there and hit the notification, because that's going to help you stay up to date with YouTube specific content as we come out with that as well. So I want to let you know, Keys to the Shop Consulting. You have maybe heard me talk about this. What is it? It is one-on-one custom solutions, coaching, and consulting for your coffee shop. If you're just starting out and you want an advisor along the path of starting on the right foot, or if you've already been down the path and you need to right the path a little bit, you need to overcome some challenges, or just get some advice and have an advisor walk along with you through great opportunities like scaling your business and making some important decisions. There's a lot we can do together one-on-one through coaching and consultation at Keys to the Shop Consulting. Just email Chris at keystotheshop.com, also DM at Keys to the Shop on Instagram. And let's have a free discovery call. We'll talk all about what's going on in your world and how Keys to the Shop Consulting can help you. It's my honor to be able to have provided this for so many people over the past few years, and maybe this is something that fits what you're looking for as well. Chris at keystotheshop.com. Now, today's episode is sponsored by the great folks over at the Ground Control Brewer. The Ground Control Brewer, you can find out more information over at groundcontrol.coffee. This is the Cyclops brewer. That's their first brewer, the first generation that you see all over the world, making amazing coffee and blowing minds about what kind of depth and range of flavor coffee can have as a batch brew product. But not only that, it makes batch iced lattes, batch cold brew by giving you high extraction espresso concentrate and cold brew. The new brewer is smaller than the Cyclops, so it fits in more places in the cafe. It's beautiful, and it also boasts a 30% higher output of batched espresso and cold brew than the previous generation of ground control brewers. So again, go to groundcontrol.coffee if you're looking for an upgrade in quality and versatility in coffee brewing for your cafe. And we're also sponsored today by the Barista Series plant-based beverages. They are created for baristas and tested by great baristas before they even reach your shelf. Stands up to the heat from steaming. It has amazing texture that's perfect for latte art, and the flavor balance is perfect for every beverage to be focused on the coffee. That's what people are buying coffee for. They want to still taste the coffee, you know? So this is a wonderful beverage. You should try it for yourself. PacificFoodService.com. If you go there, get samples and taste it, see what I'm talking about. I think you're going to be impressed. And if you want the best for your customers, plant-based beverages, then I think you should try the Barista Series from Pacific. Okay, everyone. Well, today we are going to be talking about a great subject, wholesale and sales, and being a great sales rep, running a great wholesale department. It's something we covered on the show years ago, and I wanted to bring it up again because I ran into somebody at the SCA Expo in Chicago, Forte. Now, Forte has been the director of wholesale for Olympia Coffee since 2011, and he has worked as a barista, a delivery driver, a trainer as well at Olympia Coffee, in addition to working on the East Coast since 2009. Through 2011. He serves as the head judge and competition committee member at the US Barista Championships and done that since 2013. Honor resides in Olympia, Washington, with his family and supports Olympia's coffee wholesale program and partners worldwide. And so this conversation is coming from somebody who has been really in the game for quite a while and is not only highly involved in the highest sort of expressions and bleeding edge of coffee out there, but also at the level of just interacting with clients. And that ranges from specialty cafes and mom and pops to grocery store chains and larger clients. And Honor's experience is invaluable. And so today we are going to be talking to Honor all about not only his own experiences as a wholesale rep and a wholesale director, but also his advice to you. If you are a small roastery, and especially as a roastery cafe, there are a lot of gold nuggets to take away from today's conversation. I think, especially around how you should approach client relationships, some of the things you should be prepared for as you're pursuing sales, and the way that we need to think about pursuing different kinds of clients as well. And there's a lot more here. We talked for a good 50 minutes here, and Honor really delivers some great insights from the wisdom that he's gained in the nearly 2 decades of his coffee industry career. So I hope that you are ready to learn a lot, and your wholesale program and your career as a wholesale rep, if that's you out there today, is definitely going to benefit. So without anything else from me, let's get right to it. Here now is my conversation with Honor Forte of Olympia Coffee Roasters. All right, Honor, welcome to Keys to the Shop. How are you?
Oh, great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, 100%. And it's a really great topic that we're talking about here because, and here's why. We're talking about wholesale. And, sales is part of what we do, but it's also one of these things that people have sometimes, I think, the wrong impression of sales itself, sales and marketing, and we all have different hangups about those things. But the success of the businesses that we all kind of work in is dependent on how well you can accomplish this thing. And you and I got to meet one another at the SCA Expo in Chicago, and you've been with Olympia Coffee for 17 years. Is that correct?
13, but yes, yeah,
13 years,
it's up
right?
there.
It's up there. It's in the teens. That's a lot of time. And most of that time has been in a sales role in wholesale, correct?
Yes, yeah, correct. Yeah, I started as a barista there, but moved into sales almost immediately during my time there. And I think I have an interesting perspective on sales and especially growing wholesale because I have worked at one place, but it's also very specific to high quality coffee in the Pacific Northwest. I am not the kind of person that's jumped around from company to company over the years, so I have a pretty specific viewpoint on what kind of customers I've worked with. But I do think it applies to a lot of the kind of roasteries that are growing now throughout the specialty coffee community. So.
Okay, so you started in sales pretty straight away, but you had some coffee experience prior, correct?
Yeah, I did. I started as a barista. I actually worked on the East Coast first. Worked at a small shop in West Virginia as a barista, and pretty soon after, about a year into my career there, I moved to Philadelphia and worked at a counterculture shop there. You may know it now, Ultimo Coffee. They roast their
Yes.
own coffee. They're wonderful. I worked there for a while, just long enough to know that I wanted to probably make a career in coffee outside of just being a barista, and started looking for where I was going to go next. And that ultimately led me to Olympia Coffee.
That's awesome. And shout out to Aaron Ultimo and the crew there. Just a good friend of mine and just a great operator. I always like their space there. So you now, as a professional of 13 years and beyond, what is it like? Probably close to 20 now, for yourself.
Yeah.
You have been in sales and wholesale, and you quickly moved into that role. Now, I'm interested in that word quickly and what's behind that. Like, is it, your dream job, or is it more practical? How did your career evolve to get such a singular focus on wholesale?
Yeah, it's a good question. So um, I, I don't know how many people experience this. I feel like I haven't actually come across that many folks in the coffee industry who have had this same kind of drive, in this same kind of draw. But I knew I wanted to do sales since I was a kid. Something about just the sales profession was always appealing to me. And actually, while I worked on the East Coast in Philadelphia, I actually applied for a sales position. I think it was with like a plumbing parts company or something. I don't know. I
Oh,
saw it
wow.
pop up somewhere and I was like, I have to do sales. This is what I want to do. And I applied, and of course, they didn't even look at my resume. I was a fine arts major. I have a BFA, a 4-year degree in fine art. And I don't know why anybody would ever hire me as a sales rep. But I was just like, I just have to be a sales rep someday. I didn't really know what that meant at the time, but I felt drawn to it for some reason. And as I was working in coffee more, I started to realize that, you know, I had worked on the East Coast and the West Coast at this point, coming to Olympia Coffee. I realized like these are actually the people I want to be around. They're not in this to make as much money as possible. They're not in this to grow shareholder value to its absolute maximum and let's grow as fast as possible. They're more interested in things like ethics and social responsibility and environmentalism. And it's like, oh wow, coffee industry is actually like a great place to just make a career. It doesn't have to be this like barista job while I'm applying for sales positions in some other corporation, corporate world. But where it started for me, it's kind of interesting. I was thinking about this the other day. I walked into our roastery at Olympia Coffee. Honestly, it might have been a month after I got hired, and our roaster at the time was a guy named Will Frith. Many listeners
Haha.
may know Will Frith. He was one of my first people I met in Olympia, Washington, and him and Kelly kind of took my wife and I in as we moved to the Northwest and maybe didn't have that many friends yet, and got to know them. And one day I walked in, and Will wasn't roasting as he normally was. He was standing over a stack of papers. I was like, what are you doing? And he's like, I guess I got to do sales. He's like, I'm moving into sales here because we need a salesperson. And I was like, wait a minute, coffee roasters have salespeople? And I hadn't really
Mm.
explored it in the coffee industry yet. And I think that very day, I talked to the owners of Olympia Coffee, Oliver, Sam, and Andy, about being a sales rep. And I've had the same position since that day. I've moved into
Wow.
management over this department, but I very quickly got into this job when the same day I realized it even existed.
So this was your first sales role
Yes.
at all.
Yeah.
And you had been idealizing sales as a role that you wanted to do ever since you were a kid. So you've got a lot of expectation built up in your mind about what it's like to be in sales. Now you're doing it. How did you experience it?
Yeah. Ultimately, like what I knew at that time was that Olympia Coffee had good coffee shops. We had cafes, right? And we also had a roastery that could produce coffee for other businesses. And at that time, we had 4 wholesale customers, right? Olympia Coffee has kind of a journey. I don't need to go into the whole thing, but at the time that I was hired, they had 4 wholesale customers and we had 8 employees. And I recognize that, like, oh, there's a ton of potential here. Like, the product is really good. I know all about serving it in a cafe. I could tell you all of our origins. I knew quite a bit about how we sourced coffee. But it seems like this would be a great fit for other businesses that just don't know we exist yet. And so to me, I was like, this is easy. We just need to let people know we exist. Now, I had a lot of guidance from people with a lot of experience in the specialty coffee roaster wholesaler sort of realm already. Oliver, one of the owners of Olympia Coffee, Oliver Stormchak, has worked in specialty coffee since the early 90s. and had before purchasing Olympia Coffee had worked at Batdorf and Bronson in Olympia, Washington, for a little more than 10 years, I believe, and had a lot of experience with what wholesale customers need. And so I don't think, views himself as like a natural salesperson who's going to go out and get all the accounts, but he has a lot of the knowledge of what makes a good wholesaler. And so, together, basically, with him providing the right services and product and basically giving me the tools I need to go out and find accounts, I was able to kind of dive headfirst into sales and learn how to do it pretty quickly. Um, and I hit the ground running, I guess I'll say. But
Yeah.
I also asked for a lot of advice.
Oh, that's really smart. And that advice came, and I'm sure as you applied it, you saw the fruits of that labor. And it wasn't as simple as just saying, this is who we are, and you know, love us, right? Like we have to get what the customer needs. And I'm curious what your uh, experience was in terms of maybe some uh, revelatory moments where you said, "Oh, okay, here's sort of like the breakdown of what a customer who is in specialty coffee needs from a roaster as a support." You know, maybe the main things that you were just kind of thinking, "Okay, that makes sense," and it just opens up so much more in the relationship, and it makes the sale a lot easier and keeps the customer longer.
Yeah, yeah. I think what I realized early on, with a lot of potential customers I was working with, is that they didn't have the experience under their belt that Olympia Coffee had opening retail locations. At the time, we only had 2 locations. We're now about to open our 8th location, a little slower growth than some have approached in our industry. But Olympia Coffee has been very careful and methodical about opening each of our cafes. And even back then, our 2 locations at the time were very well thought out, very well run. And what I saw is that a lot of customers were coming to us and they were saying, like, I don't even know where to start. I don't know how to hire
Yeah.
somebody. I don't know how to make my menu, what my pricing should be. And what I looked at is like, we have that info. We know what works. Even though we've only opened 2 locations, we were about to open our third around the time I was starting. I knew how to help people get connected with information. I think this was really my kind of superpower as a new sales rep who had never worked in sales before. Um, but I had potential customers I was connected with. My superpower was being able to say, like, I know how to find you an answer. I don't know the answer yet, but I'll have it for you today, and not drop the ball on that. You know, at that time, a lot of people were opening cafes with me and trusting me with a lot of their business, when I was pretty new to it. But I had the power of Oliver's experience in the past, Sam's experience, Andy's experience. But also, I got to talk to a lot of other people throughout the industry. One of the first people I bounced a lot of questions off of was Sarah Dooley. At the
Oh, yeah.
time, I think she had maybe just started at La Marzocco, and she was kind of a role model of mine of like, this is somebody who's worked in sales, in a couple different sides of the industry. And she was somebody I could take questions to and learn from. And that's pretty much how I spent my first couple years. I talked to other sales reps who are like, oh, I went to school for business. I read all these books. And it's like, I've definitely read my share of, things that are like kind of helping me communicate with customers. But I would say the majority of my learning was from simply asking people with more experience than me and kind of learning on the job through people that I trusted.
How do you have the presence of mind in a what sounds like an organic growth pattern for you, um, to recall and apply the lessons that you're learning along the way? If it's not school, if it's not a book or a workshop and a workbook, do you have, I mean, imagine you are using a CRM software of some kind or some kind of organizational system to help at least help you capture the information that you are learning, that I imagine also translated into the way that we do wholesale now at Olympia, not just the way Honor does things, but sort of like the program itself.
I think it's probably evolved over time. But I think this is one of the things that has uh, made me a good rep and a good partner for a lot of the cafes that I work with is simply being organized, however you do it, whatever CRM, spreadsheets, tools you're using. I think it's about being organized and not dropping the ball. I'd say like my probably most powerful tools that I've used over time for both recalling information, but also staying organized for customers is like the Notes app on my phone, the Calendar app on my phone, and Google Drive. I think
Mm,
we're just like in an interesting age of technology where things can be done so on the spot. Like I was with a customer this morning who's about to open. I, I have a lot of customers who are in the final stages of opening right now, like this morning. And I was with somebody this morning and I said, like, how are things going? You have your inspection in a couple of days, you have your employees. Do you have an employee handbook? And they said, like, I don't have an employee handbook yet. I don't know what to do. And I said, look, I've got a sample handbook for you. We've prepared it for Olympia Coffee's customers. I've got it right here on my phone. It's editable. I'm going to send it to you and it's going to help you create your own version of it. There's a few things in there you can change to fine tune towards your customer or towards your staff's needs. And I sent it to him right on the spot. And ultimately, like having those things, having access to it, ready to airdrop at any moment. I use airdrop like 10 times a day, I feel like some days. So to
yeah.
people's phones. But I think that that's come really easy to me. It's just stay organized, keep everything searchable and ready to airdrop from your phone.
And now, in terms of how that has evolved into what the program is today, you mentioned you have these resources, you've got some assets, you can promise this, you can promise that. Um, you're finding questions to answers is a service in and of itself. So when it comes to developing a productized list of services or ways that you can convince somebody if they're weighing in the balance between, well, we want to go with Olympia or we want to go with this other company, you've probably got a list of things as assets that they find very attractive that has helped close that sale many times. And I'm curious what those things are that you believe are they should be kind of like tools or assets that every wholesale program should have.
Yeah. Every company has a slightly different personal approach to how they're going to answer this question. I can share a little bit about
Yeah.
what has worked at Olympia Coffee, but I'd say there isn't any one size fits all thing. I'm proud to say that like I find our customers and my sales reps that I've had on my team over the years, they find their customers usually through relationship first, right? We're finding people that we build good relationships with and that we ultimately work together well. But I think that like the things that have worked best for us is focusing on what works in our own cafes, right? What things do our actual coffee shops need and what have they used to be successful themselves and offering that to our customers. I think the strength of
Mm.
our wholesale program is ultimately what the company does company wide, which is retailing coffee, right? This is what a lot of customers come to us not knowing is how do we retail coffee? How do we do that? And sharing pricing models, um, you know, I use the term retail tools, but really like what one of our strengths is being able to go to our customers and say like, I have opening and closing checklists that you can personalize to your shop, but they're made for you, right? I have your milk order par form, right? Your cafe doesn't know how to order milk without over ordering accidentally. Well, here's a par that we use in our cafes. We fine tuned it over the last 15 years,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, of course, I mentioned already, but the handbook, I mean, developed by our HR department, is something that helps cafes go through disciplinary action with baristas, but also just have a clear set of rules where they can say like, here's what our employees agree to on day one working at this cafe. You can be a shop with 3 employees that's a startup. You've never run a coffee shop before. You don't know what you're doing, but you're going to have a handbook written by Olympia Coffee's HR department. And I'm always proud that it's like, oh, that's a tool that we've really spent so much energy developing for our own cafes that we now get to share with our wholesale customers. It saves people a lot of time and money. And, this is one of the things I think we've done really well is we share those tools with our wholesale customers to let them hit the ground running on day one with a lot of professionalism and a lot of things that are going to save them money. You know, I think a lot of people can offer really high quality coffee, and a lot of different companies can offer great wholesale pricing on coffee. But I think the kind of partnership we've always focused on helps people be more profitable on day one. And I've always felt that was a strength of how I approach potential customers.
And imagine that's something that you train into your sales reps and is what is behind a lot of long-term customers in is that relationship, but not just the idea that you have a relationship, but that it's one where people know there's a lot of value being given for their success as a operator, and you're not just a vendor at that point. You are kind of a partner in a sense, if I'm hearing that correctly.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I do think of myself as a partner to a lot of these shops. Um, Hmm. I don't even know how much I should go into it, but a lot of the people that have called me on day one, maybe they send an inquiry through our website. They're like, I'm just curious about wholesale options. I look back on those little emails that get sent out that are just like, hey, I'm thinking about opening a coffee shop. Could somebody call me? These are people that I spend hours and hours on the phone with over the next couple weeks, months. And some of them become some of my closest friends. I don't think any salesperson would have that different of a story. But um, you know, some of the people I spend a lot of time on the phone with, just talking about our kids and our, maybe the new Bluey episode or something. Shout out to
Right,
parents
right,
that
right.
maybe are following what's going on with Bluey right now. But this is ultimately it does become friendships and personal relationships, and we're all working together towards the same goal, which is having successful coffee businesses.
Yes. And so when you talk about this, it all sounds good. There's a lot of people who, in their desperation for, they've opened a roastery and they want to get wholesale clients. This all sounds like a pretty long term investment where we need to get a sale now, and we need to get customers now. And we don't have exactly um, a ton of resources. And maybe we're just a roastery. We're not a cafe. Um, what kind of advice would you give people who are wholesale reps for roasteries that do need this business, but they need it quickly, and they also obviously they want to serve their customer well, but they might have some limitations. What is the best thing to invest into when it comes to delivering value, and how would you communicate that to the prospective client?
Yeah, I think what my advice is, it's not always fast, right? So like,
Mm,
um, if you're looking to grow wholesale as quickly as possible, um, I may not be the right person to ask. I'm just going to be honest. What I think Olympia Coffee has done is decided to be mission and values driven in how we find wholesale customers, which isn't always the fastest way to grow wholesale. We're very selective in how we find people that align with our mission statement. Our mission is that we exist to improve quality of life for our coffee farmers, for our staff, and benefit our community. And ultimately, what we're looking for is wholesale partners that are doing the same thing. It's not always like, oh, Whole Foods or Fred Meyer grocery stores. Like they're not always aligned perfectly with our values on this. So there's a certain way you could say like, oh, there's different ways of looking at ultimately what our mission statement is. But when I was starting out, ultimately we were looking for partnerships of places that uh, really just kind of got what we were doing and wanted to bring that in. Like we focused on high quality coffee and the correct pricing for it from day one, which meant we were more expensive than a lot of our competitors. And we had to
Mm.
find places that were interested in quality over just how low can you get our price, right? And so it meant that we probably grew slower than some of our competitors that were like going to source green coffee maybe a different way. And we're going to price things in a different way because their goal was to grow as fast as possible, right? So, all that being said, if you're a new sales rep, and you're looking to get into this and try and find your first customers, I would say focus on relationships you currently have. Look at your business community, look at your friends who are out there. And these are places that maybe serve one of your competitors' coffee, but also maybe they're looking for a change. And really, like getting your name out there and letting them know you exist is the first step. Some piece of advice I got early on is that the average sale is made after at least 8 contacts, right? And so like keeping in mind that like it's not like on day one you say like I want to be your coffee roaster. Please just like buy my coffee weekly. I've got wholesale pricing. Here it is. And they say like, oh, no, 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 we have a coffee roaster. We're good. If you go like into your room, close the door and say like, I'm defeated. They don't like me. This is terrible. Well,
Yeah, yeah.
you're not going to like sales because that's a lot of it, right? But on the ninth, 10th visit where you're talking to them, whatever your sales approach is, just keep in mind it's going to take multiple visits. It's going to take really figuring out what is it that that customer needs, and being for them kind of continuously. So don't be afraid of the time it takes to earn people that are the right fit.
And you, in the way that you approach things as a sales rep, have to, imagine you'd have to believe in the company that you're representing, because there's going to be limitations that prevent you from being successful. Like as a sales rep, you want to make sales, and that looks better if you make sales. But if you know, for instance, that you, like you said, priced correctly coffee, which is a whole nother subject, or a very related subject, um, that's a constraint that you can't change as a rep. That wasn't decided by you. That's something decided by the company you're representing as a rep, right? So you could find yourself maybe with the tension, I imagine. And I would love your perspective on this, where the company that I love is holding me back from doing the thing I love, uh, with the constraints they have. So the temptation might be to talk to them like, hey guys, look, maybe we should have cheaper coffee, or what if we did this and did that? And part of it is because I keep getting rejected. Maybe something's wrong. So, two questions here, really.
Yeah.
One, how do we navigate that tension as individuals in a job where there are constraints? And two, how do we approach our bosses and our company, and when do we do that? When it's maybe manifestly evident that something is wrong, maybe there is some kind of a change that needs to be made.
I think there's one way to sum up both of these questions to me. And again, I've worked at Olympia Coffee for 13 years, and I've really found my home with the way we do business, right? But ultimately, like the reason this works is because we are a mission-driven company. Um, we are a certified B corporation, and a lot of that has to do with holding ourselves responsible to our mission statement and wanting to uphold what we tell the public we do internally, right? But when we say we're a quality of life business, um, that's not us trying to get customers to buy our coffee solely. It's also us trying to set a standard for ourselves on how we make decisions, and I see that in the business owners as well. So I think like what I've found as an employee of this business is that you you really need to be aligned with the goals of ownership when they define their mission statement. Is it something that resonates with you as a salesperson, right? If you have
Hmm.
the same ultimate goals, if you have the same mission, then you're going to have disagreements. You're going to have different ways you want to go about things. As employee and ownership relationship is always going to butt heads on certain things. But if you ultimately have the same mission statement and the same goal, it's going to make sense over time, right? It's going to be something that fits the mission. And if it doesn't, move on, whatever it is. But it is just like, I think there is something to really being mission focused. Um, in all of our meetings, we bring up our mission statement. It's kind of weird, like how much we embrace it, because it does help us remember why we're making each decision, all the way
Yeah.
down to which customers we bring on, how each person is paid, where we're allocating money, which, um, how many delivery drivers we bring on. There's all different kinds of things that this helps us think through. And I think it's important to find a company you feel that way about, especially if you're going to do sales, because you're going out there and representing that mission statement to the world, right?
Yeah. When you now you're a boss of reps in a sense, right? You still rep and you have your clients that you talk to, but you've got people who you are a leader of.
Yeah.
And I wonder what that's like now for you, and how that either complicates the job, enriches the job, and what are some of the challenges and rewards of having a team of people you're responsible for in a wholesale department, not just wholesale, you know, honor.
Yeah. Full transparency here. I want to share like what our team really looks like, right? So I'm director of sales. I'm also a wholesale rep for a lot of the customers that I've brought on since 2011 and 12. My very first customers, many of them are still with me. Um, Over the years, we've added 2 sales reps, right? And
Hmm.
one of them opened a coffee shop and moved on, right? So that's great. That's kind of what we were preparing him to do. It's awesome. Good for him. His shop is amazing. My other sales rep is a guy named Patrick, and he was serving coffee with me at SCA, and he has his book of business too. He has clients that he supports and trains, and him and I are the sales team, right?
Ah,
Outside of us, we also have our office team, our delivery driver, and the roasting team are all kind of part of how we fulfill what our customers need. And they're all kind of a part of this wholesale ecosystem and support system that we provide to our customers. Ultimately, my goal as sales manager is to make sure that Patrick is learning what I've learned over the years, and his customers have access to those answers that I've talked about. Again, I know this is going to sound kind of repetitive, but like the reason both Patrick and I, as well as our other sales rep Tyler, uh, who opened the cafe, the reason that we all moved into sales is because we love what Olympia Coffee is doing already. The things that we're doing with our coffee shop, our green coffee sourcing, right? We're the right fit to go help our customers because we get the mission of the company, what their goals are, and also that it could fit for small businesses that are in need of help. And so I think that ultimately my goal is to make sure that Patrick is prepared with the things that I've learned over the years, just because he's newer to the position than me. But both of us handle new customers the same way. We're both getting the same kind of answers and resources to them. And Patrick and I have both been in coffee about the same amount of time. So um, I feel really proud when he's out there representing Olympia Coffee, because he's ultimately going with systems that I've created over the years, and he's doing a great job.
yeah. Okay, so let me ask you about, generally speaking, today there is a different environment than there was 13 years ago when it comes to people's education about coffee. Thanks to people's work like yourself, right? Educating and helping people be successful. People are pretty knowledgeable. And there's a lot of choices out there now. So, what's the biggest difference? Maybe a few differences that today's environment uh, holds versus the one that you started in when it comes to the wholesale landscape and clients and the questions they have and challenges they face.
I think that we have seen a lot of changes in the landscape of wholesale coffee over the years. I think one interesting one I was thinking about recently is just how many fewer multi-roaster shops are opening now than when I started. We've seen a real
Mm.
change in the way people are approaching multi-roaster cafes. I think it was sort of a trend that was really developing around when I started at Olympia Coffee, and didn't seem like it was ever going to slow down. But we've seen a lot more customers recently over the last 4 or 5 years say like, we want to be a single roaster shop. I really need help. I don't need to serve 7 roasters. I need barista training, right? I need help being profitable sooner, things like that. That it just seems like there's an uptick in people who are kind of focusing on that more now than there used to be. They wanted, seemed like a lot of cafes wanted to mimic what awesome shops that Andrew Milstead was rolling out in Seattle in 2011 at Milstead and Co. Barista, of course, in Portland, and eventually G&B and Go Get 'Em Tiger. As these were opening, they were setting a standard for like people were like, I kind of want to be that, right? And I think lately maybe it's TikTok, Instagram. I think people are like, actually, I just want to create good service. I'm not worried about what roasters I serve, but I do need to do that. Who's going to help me do that? Right. Um, that's one big change we've seen over the years, I think. Maybe that's pretty specific to the customers that we're helping right now, but I do feel it's changed a lot over my time. The other big one is that grocery has like completely changed. Any wholesale reps that are listening to this are going to be like, oh my gosh, yeah, grocery is all I think about lately. Um, if you're working with small grocers, huge grocery chains, whatever it is, it's different now than it was 3 years ago, 5 years ago, and 10 years ago. It's changed a lot. We say like grocery is essentially like upscaling right now. Instant coffee is now good, and grocers are like, oh, we can carry good instant coffee. Cool.
Yeah.
But also they're like, oh, you're a 12-ounce bag of coffee for $23. They're like, yeah, that's kind of normal. We'll do it. Yeah, we're in. Right. And I think that 10 years ago, it was so weird if you had expensive coffee in a grocery aisle. Right. And if you kind of draw lines in the sand about what your freshness dates are and when you want it pulled from the shelf, it used to be a little more foreign to grocers. Nowadays, everybody's kind of open to it because, of course, consumers are valuing what we do more now than ever. And I think a lot of that comes down to social media, to be honest.
That's really interesting. So the customer is driving more access to higher end coffees in common areas. And the clients that are specialty coffee people are, it's almost sounding as though there's this level of saturation and burnout of complexity and the desire to get to just functional operational excellence and basics that will allow them to continue to serve their customers. So it all sounds very customer focused all around. So the coffee shop who wants to provide consistency rather than novelty in the customer driving the sales of specialty coffee in grocery stores is really wonderful. Um, when you approach those things, you have to have a little bit more of a diverse range of tools, I imagine. Approaching a grocery store versus a uh, relationship based coffee shop that where you talk about Bluey, right? People at Whole Foods might or might not want to talk about that, et cetera. So, dancing between the relational and the practical, where you have a big account, this big account has a real down to business purchasing manager that we have to deal with, and your Jedi tricks don't work on him. So, how do you how do you sort of like switch into this practical and business mode, or I mean, or do you? What is the uh, agility here that's needed?
Yeah, so I can speak a little bit to what has worked so well for us to earn grocery partnerships. Like, again, it's not me going out and building relationships with um, the buyer at Kroger in Cincinnati to be in Fred Meyer here in Olympia. It's not, I'm not going to know their kids' names. I don't have an opportunity to even access that information. It doesn't matter. What does matter is having them be interested in you because you can grow sales and their margins on the coffee aisle, right? Something we see again and again. They want to get down to brass tacks. Coffee buyers at grocery level want to know, how can you grow my sales in my coffee aisle? And what we've invested in to get there is awards and social media and our presence to their customers, right? We can approach a grocery chain and say, your customers that are walking in the door are already buying our coffee, but they're getting it elsewhere, right? One of the things I share a lot in sort of grocery marketing materials is that this might not sound it might sound like a little bit of gymnastics here, but we do have the largest social media following of any coffee roaster in Washington other than Starbucks. This is a simple phrase, but it's a way of saying that it's Starbucks and us, and your customers are following us. They're interested in what we're doing by following our social media. We don't have the largest social media following because we have the most 91-point coffees, right? Whatever, like that's not what drives social media following. It's winning barista competitions. It's seeking out things like Certified B Corporation. It's having beautiful drinks in your cafes that are always progressing, right? Our cafes are constantly creating new things and putting them on social media. It's having, you know, we've sought out barista competition, Brewers Cup competition, Coffee and Good Spirits competition awards since day one. The year I was hired in 2011, we won second, third, fourth, and fifth at Northwest Brewers Cup. And it was just like, this is how we're going to get our name out there. And we haven't stopped since. Yeah. We won Coffee and Good Spirits first place last week at SCA. Last year, we won Coffee and Good Spirits, the US level. And those things are how we get our name out there and ultimately attract grocery buyers to say, like, look, we're leading the industry. Your customers already want what we do. They've seen it online. Let's make it available to them on your shelves.
Wow. Yeah. I love the doing that is also a way of saturating yourself in the industry as it is on the bleeding edge of things, as well as the grocery store level of things, where you can apply it in the middle to your clients that run coffee shops. So you have this deep bench of resource and experience to choose from, and you've learned how to apply it across a lot of different platforms that people want to enjoy your coffee on. And it comes down to, what can you do for me to be successful? So you're a client at a coffee shop, you want to know about managing staff, an employee handbook, extraction ratios that make sense for espresso in 16-ounce beverages. If you're the purchasing manager at a grocery store, you just want to know about the numbers and how to make them look good, basically.
Yeah.
And so that I love that it comes down to thinking about the customer and how you can benefit them, and that you could do both as a roaster. Would you recommend people, as they can, try to basically straddle both worlds? In when I say both worlds, I mean, like, there's the competitions, and then there's just the street level practicality of the numbers based sales that can give you some volume to support those kind of investments.
Yeah, again, not to sound repetitive, but it comes down to what your mission statement is, right?
Mm.
Does it fit with your ultimate goals that you've laid out for yourself and your business as the business owner? And how are you laying that out for your sales reps and what you ultimately want from them? I think that it's just like, it's important to just be clear and upfront with exactly what the goals need to be. And sometimes it takes like constantly reevaluating. Olympia Coffee, I'm really proud to say, is like not afraid to try anything. Like we will try new things. We will try new ways of approaching pricing or communication or ultimately how our staff communicates. It's just new things have to be a part of, just like simply saying, like, is this a part of our mission statement? Is this helping us get closer to our goals or not? But I do think, like you said, like kind of straddling both worlds has become a part of our roadmap of improving quality of life for coffee farmers. I'm proud to say that like grocery has grown more than we ever thought it would. And there's times when we say, is this right for us? Right? Weekly, probably we stop and say, like, is this the right kind of growth? Is this the right kind of place that like we are winning barista competitions. We have cool coffee shops that are focused on high quality. Should we really be sending out a pallet of coffee to a grocery store? And ultimately, we go back and look at that mission statement. Is this improving quality of life, right? Because we've grown grocery, the direct response from our coffee farmers is that this is better for them than where they were selling their coffee before, right? We offer higher prices. We offer a place to negotiate. We actually have, in-person purchasing for all of our coffee. That's, becoming more normal, thank goodness, across the industry. But all of our coffees are direct trade, most of them customized in some way for us. And that coffee is going out a pallet at a time to some grocery partners of ours. And it's fulfilling our mission in a way that is allowing us to also hire more staff at above market wages and get more money to coffee farmers, and ultimately making us more efficient as a business too.
Honor, I'm thankful to have you on the show, and you've shared so many great things that I think have helped a great deal of roasters and retailers alike out there. Where can we find out more information about Olympia Coffee, and even be connected to what you're up to in the world of coffee?
Yeah, great. Okay, so olympiacoffee.com, of course, or Olympia Coffee on all social media platforms. You guys should follow it, check it out. My personal account, you're going to see a lot about cars, kids, bikes, all kinds of stuff on my social media, but just I'm at Honor Forte on Instagram, and wherever you want to go look for me, I'm out there. But yeah, I'm so thankful to get to come here and talk to your audience and hopefully help some small roasters. Maybe they're starting up. I've just found such a place in the coffee industry. Again, I wanted to be a salesperson, but I happened to find my people in coffee. And at Olympia Coffee, I found people that wanted to support my vision of where we were going. And ultimately, I found people that I liked their mission. And so I hope other people who are drawn to sales out there can find that, find a company they're proud to work with. So thanks for your time here on this. I really, really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Honor.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, everybody. Well, I hope that you enjoyed that conversation. It definitely was something that resonated with a lot of what we already love about coffee. That is relationships, and the idea that we want to build a trust based relationship between everybody that we interact with in this process of getting sales. We want to support the company that we work for. We want our company to make money through sales. But in the process of doing that, there's an element of patience with it. There is a desire to serve people, just like we serve people coffee. We serve people who serve coffee, a la the Barista Magazine motto of serving people, serving coffee. Similar approach and a similar application here when you're doing wholesale. So whether it's the wholesale or purchasing manager at Whole Foods or a Kroger or something, and they are all business in numbers. You're serving their needs just as much as you're serving the needs of the mom and pop or the specialty coffee shop that wants to use your coffee as well. And I like what they have done with Olympia because they stuck to their values as a company, and they priced the way they did because they wanted to do well by the people that they represent. And that means the farmers, so they need to price the coffee so that they can pay a fair amount for the coffee that they serve. And it didn't make sense to them, I'm sure, to undercut that. We didn't get a chance to talk about it very much, but sticking to your values across a long-term plan to grow your wholesale makes a lot of sense. And as a rep, that's something that I think you probably need to buy into right up front. And so Honor's input here on really delivering the value to your clients over time and making it about caring for them in this relationship, and doing what you can to keep that conversation one of helping them inform you of here's what we need. And you can say, well, here's what we can do. It's just that simple back and forth can itself, over the years, develop your wholesale approach and department to be something that truly is effective and cares for people. So thank you so much to Honor Forte for being on the show. If you are interested in more information about Olympia Coffee, you can just go to olympiacoffee.com, and from there, the world is your oyster. You can just explore everything to do with Olympia Coffee. And if you have any questions, comments, or feedback for me about today's episode, feel free to email me. Chris@keystotheshop.com is where you can do that. And don't forget, by the way, every time we do an episode, there's always related episodes that I list out. And the related episodes this time around are going to be focused on wholesale coffee and issues attached to that around roasting, building a roasted coffee menu, and that type of thing. And so definitely be sure to look out for that. So with that, that is the end of our episode, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me. I really appreciate all of you supporting the show over the years. And again, subscribe, share these episodes far and wide. And as always, I hope that this episode has truly given you keys to the shop.